Hello everyone, good day to all. I welcome all my dear kids to today's online live classes. I am Pushpashri, faculty of Bhat and Bhat Tutorials, and we handling mathematics. So well my dear kids, in the last session we were discussing about the chapter of square and square roots. So in today's session, let us continue with the same chapter. Let me complete the theory part today, and then we'll move on to the further problems. And if you people have missed the last session, please go through the description box and watch the previous class videos so that it will be helpful for today's class. So come, let's move on to today's class. In today's class, we'll be learning about some of the factors. So some of things which is included in square and square root. So what are those things we'll be learning in this today's class? So in today's class, first we'll just learn about the perfect square. So what do you mean by perfect square and how it is formed? What are the properties of perfect square? So we'll be knowing about that today. So come, let's move on to the perfect square. So perfect square. So perfect square. We all know square. What do you mean by square? Square is nothing but when a number is multiplied by the same number. Whatever the number that you are going to get, we are going to call that number as a square. So then what is this perfect square? See, perfect square is nothing but we'll just write the meaning first. A number is said to be a perfect square, to be a perfect square. A number is said to be a perfect square if it is a square of any natural number. So guys, now what do you mean by this? See here, a number is said to be a perfect square. So there are so many numbers. So those numbers, they are going to call that as a perfect square only when if it is the square of any natural number. The main thing here, natural number. So if you ask me what are the natural numbers, I would like to say that from 1 to infinity we have so many natural numbers, but in natural numbers 0 is not included. If 0 is included, we are going to call that as whole number. Okay, from 1 to infinity. Okay, from 1 to infinity. So for whatever the numbers that you are going to get the square. Say for example, 1 square is 1, 2 square is 4, 3 square is 9. In the same way, if square continues along with the numbers, so only for the natural numbers, then we are going to call that numbers as a perfect square. So in perfect square also there are some rules, and we are going to call only a few numbers as perfect square. So why all those things is going to happen? So first we'll just learn about the properties and then we'll move on to some of the examples of this. So properties of perfect square. Properties of perfect square. So now we have just got to know what is perfect square. Perfect square is nothing but a number where you are going to get the square for that number of any natural number. So for any natural numbers, if you are getting the square, then we are going to call that number as perfect square. So then what are the properties of perfect square? That means what are the rules are included in knowing this perfect square. So we'll just know one by one. Property number 1. A number ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8. 2, 3, 7 and 8 is never a perfect is never a perfect square. So this one we already got. So the second one, square of an even number, square of an even number, square of an even number is always even, that we had discussed in the last session. Next, square of an odd number is always odd. Okay. The next point, perfect square cannot be a negative number. So let us discuss these points in detail now. So we just got to know the meaning of perfect square. So a number, for any natural number, if you are getting the square, then we are going to call that as a perfect square. And note down here, it is a natural number, okay, where 0 is not included. Apart from 0, whatever the numbers that we are having, for that number, if you are doing the square, so whatever the root that you are square that you are going to get it, for that we are going to call it as a perfect square. So what are the properties of perfect square now? See here, the first property is going to tell you that properties here is nothing but the features of a perfect square. A number ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8 is never a perfect square. So some of the numbers is going to end with 2, 3, 7 and 8. And this number we are not going to call it as a perfect square. Say for example 32, where 32 is not a perfect square. Okay, in the same way 27 or 37, 77, 57, 47, 67, like that. If any of the 7, the number is going to end with a 7, on that time we are not going to call that as a perfect square. So in the same way 3, so it can be like 3, 13, 23, 33, 43, 53, like that. Any of the number which is going to end with 3, we are not going to call that as a perfect square. In the same way 7, so 7 we have discussed. In the same way 8, like 8, 18, 28, 38, 48, like this. The number which is going to end with 8 is never a perfect square. So this is what your first property is going to tell. The number which is going to end with 2, 3, 7 and 8, we are never going to call that as a perfect square. Okay. The second property, the square of an even number is always even, but as we have already discussed. Say for example, one of the even number 2, 4, 6, 8. What are the squares of this? 2 2s are 4. 4 4s are 16, 6 6 are 36, 8 8s are 64. The square of an even number, this is the even numbers. The squares of these even numbers is always even. See, even 4 is an even number, 16 is an even number, 36 is an even number, and 64 is also an even number. So in the same way, the square of an odd number is always odd. Say for example, two odd numbers. 1, 3, 5. 1 ones are 1, 3 threes are 9, 5 fives are 25. The squares for these odd numbers is also odd. See here, for one odd number, the square is also odd, that is 1. And 3 is also odd number, 9 is also an odd number. And 5 is also an odd number, 25 is also an odd number. Got this second point. And the third point, see the third point, a perfect square cannot be a negative number. So when you divide, when you are doing the square, say for example, I will go 9. So 9 nines are 81. Is there any negative integer here? No. If it is of negative integer, then it is not a perfect square. So how you will get to know 9 into 9? If nothing is there, we are going to analyze that it is as plus, right? So plus into plus is plus. Some of the properties of multiplication you have no minus. Plus into plus is equal to plus. Minus into minus is equal to plus. Plus into minus is equal to minus. Minus into plus is equal to minus. Okay. So these are the properties. According to these properties, we'll be doing it. So again, I'm just explaining the 4 points here. A number which is going to end with 2, 3, 7 and 8 is never a perfect square. So any number it can be, but the ending digits, if it is 2, 3, 7 or 8, then we are not going to call that numbers as a perfect square. So the square of an even number is always even. So when you are doing the squares, if you are getting an even number, so when you are doing the square for those even number, the square will also be even. And if you are doing the squares for the odd number, then that numbers will always be odd. So in the same way, perfect square cannot be a negative number. So when you are making a perfect square, when you are getting the perfect square, the answer whatever that you are going to get should be of positive integer only, but not the negative number. So you can copy down this. So one more example I can give. Hope you all copied on this. So one more example I'll just give you. So yes, I'll just give you over here. So you can, if you want to go down that also. So there is one question: is 32 is a square number? Is 32 is a square number? So your question is this: is 32 is a square number? Yes or no? You have to tell. So is 32 is a square number? Do you think yes? So let me do the square and then we are going to notify that. So as we already know the squares, 1 ones are 1, right? That is for square of 1 square. And 2 square is equal to 4. 3 square is equal to 9. 4 square is equal to 60. 5 square is equal to 20. And 6 square is equal to 36. So what is the number that I am having here? Is 32. 32 is I am having. So 32 lies between 25 and 36. So 32. Can you see 32 in any of the numbers? See again, if I go further, the numbers will be increasing, right? It will not decrease again. So can you see 32 over here? No. So then can we call 32 as a square number? No. Why? See here the properties. The number ending with 2. 32 is ending with 2, right? And 3. Can you see 3 over here? Or 7 over here? Or 8? So you just check with your square numbers that whatever that we had written on the last session. So in that numbers, you never find these 4 numbers. Why? Because it is not a perfect square. So when you are getting any other numbers apart from these 4 numbers, then you are going to call that as a perfect square. So when they ask you the question like this, what is the answer that you have to write it for this? You can see here, 5 into 5 is equal to 25. That is the square root of 5. Or you can write 5 square is equal to 25. And 6 square is equal to 36. 5 5s are 25, 6 6 are 36. There is no natural number. There is no natural number between or we can write it in the full form, between 5 and 6, 5 and 6, square number. 32 is not a square number. See here. So 32 is a square number. So your question will be like this sometimes. So what you have to do? 5 square is equal to 25 and 6 square is equal to 36. So there is no natural number between 5 and 6. So is there any number between 5 and 6? No. Therefore 32 is not a perfect square. Or else apart from this reason you can get the first reason also. The number ending with 2, 3, 7 and 8 is never a perfect square. So this is one of the reasons that you can give. So apart from this, this is also one of the reasons that you can give it for your solution. So you can copy down this now. So if you want, you can copy down the square and square root here just for your reference. So if you don't want, you can go directly with this question. Copy down this now. Okay, fine. Hope you all copy down this. So now we'll just move on to the square roots. So one of the trick that you have it in a square root, I'll just tell you that trick now. And then we move on to imperfect square. Okay? Imperfect square is not there in our syllabus, but still you just know about the concept. Okay? So one of the tricks, see here, 10 square is equal to 100. Okay? 100 square, 20 square, I want to 100 later. Okay? So 20 square is equal to 400. 30 square is equal to 900. 40 square is equal to 16. Okay. So why I am writing this one? Why now you are going directly with this? I'll just let you know here. See here. So consider only the left hand side part. Okay. Consider only the left hand side part. How many zeros are there here? So there is only 1 zeros. Only 1 zero you have here. Correct. How many zeros that you have here? Only 1 zero. But when you square those numbers, how many zeros it will become? 2 zeros. So when you square the numbers, it will become 2 zeros. And easily see, 1 ones are 1. 0 square is nothing but 2 zeros. In the same way, 2 twos are 4 and 0 square is nothing but 0. And 3 into 3 is nothing but 9. 3 threes are 9. 0 square is nothing but 2 0. 4 fours are 16. 0 square is nothing but 2 0. So if you want to verify, you can verify here. See, 40 into 40. 40 zeros are 0. 40 fours are 16. 160. Correct. So in the same way, this is one of the trick that you can follow. So when there is 1 0 and you have the square for that and your answer, the final thing will be 2 zeros. So in the same way, now what happens if we take 2 zeros? Say for example, you have 100 square and your answer will be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 zeros it will be. So in the same way, 200 square. 2 twos are 4 and there will be 4 zeros. 300 square. 3 threes are 9. 2 zeros will become 4 zeros. Okay. In the same way, 500 square. 5 fives are 25. So 2 zeros will become 4 zeros. So this is the trick that you can follow. So here how many zeros you have? You have 2 zeros here. How many zeros you have? You have 2 zeros. Correct. You have 2 zeros over here. So when you do this squares, so what is the zero? How much zero that you have got? You will get 4 zeros. How many zeros that you are going to get? You will get zeros. This is how you people will be doing. So when you have 1 0, your squares will be square answers will be in 2 zeros, and when you are having 2 zeros, it will be 4 zeros. So you can copy down this. So hope you all copy down this. Now we'll move on to imperfect square. So now we'll just move on to imperfect square. So what is this imperfect square? So imperfect square. So this is your second one, imperfect square. Square or square numbers contains fractions or decimals. Contains fractions or decimals. Fractions or decimals is called imperfect square. Is called imperfect square. And most of the time you won't concentrate on the imperfect square, only just concentrate on the perfect square. Just for your understanding part, I am taking over imperfect square. So the meaning now, square of square numbers contains fraction. So when you are making the square or you are doing the square numbers, say for example 1 by 4 square. So when you do the square of this, what are the answers that you are going to get? So it will be in a fraction only. Or say for example 0.1 whole square. So when you are doing the square root for this, then the answer that you are going to get will be decimals only. So when you are getting these kind of problems, we are never going to call this as perfect square. But though if it is a natural number, we won't call it as a perfect square. We always consider the numbers which are there in fractions and decimals as imperfect square. So this is about your imperfect square. You can copy down this meaning now.